Welcome to Creative Caregiving and Beyond. More and more people are having to become caregivers for their elderly loved ones, and navigating this journey can be really difficult. This podcast will provide guidance and give practical tips for your family. Your host is Wendy Whiteman, elder law attorney, author, speaker, and leading insight advisor in senior protocol and senior lifestyle trends. Know that you are not alone in getting the help that you need. Let's get started. And here's Wendy.
Well, welcome to the show. Like many of you, I'm primary caregiver for my mother, and I'm always trying to come up with great information that's going to help not only me, but help you as well, make it easier on your journey. And today, I'm so excited. We've got Ryan McGuire with Upward Healthcare. It's a unique business, and I'm so excited for you to hear about it. And I needed this, about 4 years ago, really. But it's never too late, and I'm excited to learn some new things. So, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about Upward.
So, basically, just to kind of summarize, we provide education and training for family caregivers. We really focus on hands-on skills training in the home. So teaching transfer training, bed-bound care, Hoyer lift operation, all the skills that a family might need when they're caring for their loved one, but are often, not taught. They don't have that background. So we just want to educate families and help improve outcomes for the loved one, the care recipient, and the family caregiver as well.
Well, that's wonderful, because most times that family caregiver, like I was, you're thrust in that situation. It's not like you're already trained or know what to do. You have no clue usually. And this is a great service. So how did Upward Healthcare get started?
So, my background is in home care. So, I help run my family's home care business in San Antonio. And I was really, one of the things that we really focus on is being a resource in the community. And, I realized only a third of families can afford home care. Primarily it's private pay, out of pocket. Most health insurances are not going to cover it. And so I was looking for resources for families. I heard just daily, they're really struggling. You hear about caregiver burnout. And so it was really just a matter of kind of looking around in the community and looking for resources that could help family caregivers take on the responsibility of care for their loved one. And there wasn't much out there. And so that's really where I started focusing on the training aspect for families. I just heard so many families are like, gosh, my mom or dad just had a stroke. And now, like you and your story, you're thrust into the role. And I really have no idea what to do. And, as I researched it, we, found a lot of negative outcomes when they are studied of the family caregiver themselves because of how physical a transfer might be. And so that's kind of the genesis of it. From that point, we worked with a nonprofit, local nonprofit here in San Antonio, and applied for a grant with the Christopher Reeves Foundation, and just received a little bit of money to develop the program, and initially started as workshops. And we did those workshops for the first year. And after that, we realized a couple things. Number one, we wanted it to be a little bit more accessible, and then also a little bit more specific to the family situation. And that's really where we started transitioning to get the program into individuals' homes and working with individual caregivers in the location where care is actually delivered.
Very good, very good. I was reading about your modules. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the modules are basically how we set up the curriculum. So each module focuses on a specific topic. The first module, our very first one, was just basic transfer training. And we started out with, the very beginning is like, this is a gait belt, this is body mechanics. And then we progress on, as you build competency as the person participating in the training, the family caregiver, builds competency. We go from, how do you get somebody from lying to sitting? How do you get from somebody sitting to the wheelchair? And that's kind of how we developed each of the modules. We have the bed-bound care, where it's mostly focusing on, someone's in bed. So it's bed bath, positioning, how do you change adult depends, those type of situations. How might you identify a pressure ulcer, Hoyer lift operation. So we start with basically, this is a Hoyer lift, this is the components, and then how do you get a transfer, or how do you get somebody into Hoyer lift? How do you move them over? Basically full use, how do you use a Hoyer lift? Let's see, we have a fall prevention module. This was one that was at the request of some of our community partners. They were just seeing so many family caregivers that were struggling with some, their loved ones with fall risk. And, it's really focused on the education piece for the family. So what are the factors that can increase a fall risk? What areas of the home should they focus on? And then we still try to incorporate our hands-on skills for the family. And then we have a general education, which is, kind of a catch-all. It's a lot of times if there's a complex transfer, we might reiterate some points with the general education piece, or it could just be a combination of things. And then we have a new module we're in the process of developing at the request of other community partners, related to managing dementia behavior. So, very specific on, from the family caregiver's point of view, my loved one is wandering. What are some steps I can do to make sure that they remain safe? And really, it kind of expands on those specific behaviors is the goal of it. And it's in process, but those are our primary modules for right now.
Very good, very good. Well, what happens when a family caregiver approaches you? Which modules do they typically start with, or do they say, I'm just turning myself in, teach me everything? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it can be, it varies so much, we're talking to families every single day, and sometimes they have like one specific thing that they want, like, I want to get mom out of bed, or I really need help learning how to change, mom's adult depends. Or it's sometimes they come in and they have no idea what they need. They just know they need help. And so it's just a matter of kind of talking to them. We have a standard intake questions that we go through. What are you helping your loved one with? What does their day look like? What type of equipment do they have in the house? Medical bed, wheelchair, how are they ambulating? And through those questions, we get a pretty good idea of what skills that they're going to need. And then we work with the instructors. I'll work with our instructors and develop an educational plan for the family. And so, we may say, okay, well, we think you should start with transfer training. Then maybe also have fall prevention module because your loved one is a significant fall risk. And that might be it for now. But it just kind of depends on the family situation, and what skills that they're going to need when caring for their loved one.
Okay. So you mentioned training through workshops. And so what are the methods? I know you guys are located in San Antonio, but if someone was in Dallas or Houston, how would they get training?
Yeah, so primarily we've done workshops in the San Antonio area. And then we're in the home in San Antonio and Austin. So what we do, we typically partner with community programs that can cover the cost of this education, this training. We've been so fortunate just to have great partners like Area Agency on Aging and some others that, we haven't had to charge anybody anything for this service. So we're super grateful for that. And, basically as we look at expanding into other areas like Houston and Dallas, one of the things we try to do is set up very specific, processes for our family care, for our educators, which are typically LVNs or RNs.
Okay.
Teaching there, basically we'll provide some education, some background. We have, I forgot to tell y'all, when we go into the home, we're bringing like a medical dummy, we bring a wheelchair, basically a whole educational kit. But every once in a while, we've had requests to do like a virtual session. And so we've been able to train people in other cities as well. But I think our primary focus, I think what really and where you can really make such a huge difference is getting that hands-on skills where you're actually feeling, all right, this, with a dummy or as with the instructor kind of role playing, this is really where my body position needs to be. As I reach out, I can really feel pressure on my back increase. So I need to keep my back in a neutral position.
Yes.
So primarily, like I say, we're in San Antonio, we're in Austin, but the goal is to, create the processes to expand.
Well, I love that. I love the hands-on training. I really do, because you can really, you're right, you really get to see it and experience it and know that you're doing the right thing, because it can be, pretty scary when you don't have that type of training. So what was your biggest surprise when you started this type of business?
Oh gosh, I think the biggest surprise was probably just how much of a need was out there. Through the home care side of things, we saw the need quite a bit. Even when, professional caregivers are in the home, they're usually only in the home for a small amount of time. In most cases, I mean, obviously it varies with the schedules and that kind of thing. And so we knew that, when we weren't there as professional caregivers, that families are taking on such a huge responsibility. But the more we dug into it and got more and more plugged into the family caregiver community, I think, it's crazy to think about that, there's over 50 million family caregivers in the United States right now, and 80% of people will be family caregivers at some point in their life. So it truly is a problem that, affects everybody, but it doesn't seem to be some, part of the mainstream conversation until you bring it up with somebody and you're like, oh yeah, my mom's taking care of my grandparents, or, my dad is taking care of, his brother, whatever it might be. There's almost anybody can relate once you start the conversation of a family member caring for another family member. So I think, really that was the biggest surprise, is just how much need there's out there for families, and the fact that this was like not around anywhere, it didn't really exist. And so, we're just excited to be able to help fill that need and be a resource in the community.
Well, it's a great business, and I know it's blessing a lot of people, because I remember, when my mom was being discharged to skilled nursing and from the hospital, they give you all these instructions and really fast, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to remember half of it, But it's great to know that there's a company, there's a service out there that will help the family caregiver. What is the biggest misunderstanding about the process, would you say?
I think people are just, not sure sometimes on, what it is we do exactly. Sometimes just because it is so new and, it's not something that is, that even a lot of social workers or case managers know about. And so, sometimes we get calls, we're like, they think we're home care, or, they think we're home health.
Yes.
We really, or they think, okay, well, you can come and the instructor is going to care for my, provide some care for my loved one at the same time. Now we really focus on, that's one of the things we really try to clarify is this is our time to focus on the family caregiver. Yeah. This is your time. It's your time to ask questions. You don't need to have the time pressure that you may feel, when a practitioner is, coming into the home, be it home health or PT, OT, whatever it might be. Their job at that point is to, get your loved one cared for, the care recipient cared for. When we go into the home, our goal is to to find out what the family caregivers needs are and support them. And so I think, that's probably the biggest, misconception is just like, okay, what exactly are you going to be doing for me?
I could see that. I really could see that. And it's just, knowing that your service is out there. I bet there's not much competition. I mean, I had never heard of this. And when we started talking, I was like, you really have a service that does that? Because I would have loved to have that. And what I've also found, even if you hire a caregiver, their skill set is varied. I mean, some know how to do certain things when it comes to transfers, even though they may have been exposed to it, they may not be that skilled in it, and it does come with practice. So I think it's not only great for a family caregiver, but even if you hire someone to come in to make sure that they're up on exactly what to do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've been super fortunate to have great instructors that want to work for us or in our work with us and are passionate about family caregivers and providing support in the home. I mean, I think across the board, all of our instructors are like, man, this is the most rewarding job that I've had. It's because they get the chance to connect with families and truly have the time to support them in whatever resources that they need. And you likely say these are the experts or instructors, typically have the RN or LVN, the nursing background, but we also look for education experience as well. So, there's tons of practitioners out there, but having somebody that knows how to explain a complex process or motion in very simple steps, I think that's a skill and a gift. And so some of our instructors now, one was used to teach LVNs at the local nursing school here. One was worked at the CNA school in San Antonio. And so they bring that educational experience along with the nursing background and are able to support families that way. So it's really great.
Okay. So how long is your typical workshop? Is it like a day or a couple of hours or over a couple of days? How does that work?
Yeah, so when we do workshops, it's usually about 2 to 3 hours, just depending on the size of the class, the questions they may get asked. But when we do our in-home visits or in-home training, each module takes about an hour. And sometimes we'll do a single module at a time per visit, just depending on the scheduling needs of the instructor or the family. But sometimes we'll run them back to back. We'll schedule them back to back. So we may do fall prevention followed by transfer training, and that can be an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay. So there's no cost, and generally there's no cost to go to the workshop, and then you set aside a couple of hours to get that training. What happens, sometimes I come across this when there's like a husband and a wife who's a caregiver to her husband. She may be tiny, he's pretty large.
Yeah.
How do you advise in that? Do the instructors give advice as to maybe they need someone else to come in and help, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the, you'll be shocked sometimes when you go into the home and you're like, gosh, how is this lady, getting this big old guy out of bed? And at certain times, sometimes we really do have to step in and advise, like, really, we need to get a Hoyer lift in, or like you say, another person in the home. I mean, we always explain it, caregiving, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You don't want to burn yourself out mentally or physically. And absolutely somebody that is very small in stature with somebody that cannot assist in a transfer or can assist only a very limited amount. That is not a good situation. And so, when we do find those situations, we help direct them to other resources to get that type of equipment in the home. There's, great nonprofits. We have one in San Antonio called Project Men. They're fantastic. That's, refurbished medical equipment. But, really, that's one of the things, that's a common thing that we see is, we'll go in and be like, person, this family caregiver, is really not physically capable of doing what's required, because caregiving is a very physical task. It's a very physical job.
Yes, yes.
And that's one of the things from when we work in the communities and we do get an opportunity to talk with social workers and case managers, it's one of the things that we educate on is assessing a family caregiver before you're discharging them. A patient home is like, who's caring for this individual?
Right.
They should have an idea of what is going to be necessary and an idea of, who is part of the care team, right?
Right.
And so a lot of times it's, they were discharged from hospital or rehab there's zero chance it was going to be successful with the resources given. So, from an education standpoint, that's one of the things we like to talk about in the community as well, is really think through that, who's involved within care, outside of temporary home health services, who's going to be there for the long term, and then what resources do you need to help those families be successful.
Very good, very good. Because I know there are a lot of times when you're discharged with different equipment like oxygen and things like that. There's a certain skill to learn how to use that and where to keep it, how to store it, and all of that, and the levels. And is that something you guys also deal with the oxygen situation?
Yeah, we don't have anything specific to how to manage oxygen. We hope that is something that really should be addressed by your home health or the rehab. Whoever is prescribing the oxygen should be educating on that. And when we get a lot of questions, we see that's an issue, we'll typically revert back and get the provider involved so that they can get the education or the knowledge necessary to manage that.
Well, good. At least you can point them in the right direction, because sometimes they have no idea who to ask those questions to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you described, when people are discharged from the hospital or the rehab, there's so much going on. The family is trying to manage their own lives, and now they're really focused on their loved one that's getting out of the hospital, and how are we going to make this work, and who's supposed to be calling, who am I supposed to be calling? After you get home, you realize, gosh, I really am here alone a lot of the time. So
Yes.
We totally understand. We try to be a resource. Another thing, we on our website, we have a forum for family caregivers that they can submit questions after they go through the training. But then also there's some volunteer kind of social workers and counselors and that kind of thing that can help answer questions for families.
Good, very good. So there's follow-up to that workshop as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. So you mentioned you have a family business. So other family members are involved with you with this business?
Yeah, so Upward Care is a separate entity, but my background and my family's background is in home care. So they own the Griswold Home Care franchise in San Antonio. My parents started about 18 years ago, so I've kind of grown up around the business. After I got out of college, I worked in project management, but eventually, found myself wanting to get involved in the community more. And so I joined the family business as well. And then shortly after that, I think a couple of years is when I founded Upward Care and still manage both of them.
Okay. Now, when you founded Upward Care, was it someone in your family how did you figure out that this was the niche for you? Did you have a personal experience, or how did that come about?
Well, about the time that we founded Upward Care, I think it was just a process through looking at resources in the community. But at the same time, my father-in-law started taking on more care for the care of my mother-in-law.
Okay.
So she had some ongoing health issues, and I saw firsthand. It's one thing to do it from a business perspective, managing people's care. It's another thing when it does hit home and you see what the resources are available for someone in your own family. And so right around that same time, it really has hit home. Is like, yeah, this is something that everybody does need. And so that kind of guided how we develop the curriculum, what we focused on. I also lead an Alzheimer's support group with the Alzheimer's Association here in San Antonio.
Good.
And so we've had it, 4 or 5 years now, this group. And it originally started as an early stage support group for families and for their loved ones.
Okay.
And, over the time, obviously, that's progressed. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the feedback that I get from them and their experiences help guide the things that we focus on. That's where we came up with a lot of the managing dementia behavior modules that we're working on right now. Is the situations that we commonly see, resistance to medication, the wandering, resistance to bathing. We really wanted to put something together, giving families some strategies to manage those behaviors one-on-one. And also, the Area Agency on Aging in San Antonio, requested it specifically. Is like, this is just such a huge need for us here. So I think, to answer your question, just a culmination of things, the experience on the home care side, the firsthand family experience, and then, the families that I work with at the Alzheimer's Association, hearing their stories and experiences and finding a resource for them.
Very good. Very good. Well, I really love the book that you have here. It's the Upward Care Family Caregiver Workbook. And it's got a lot of great tips, and you can make notes in it for some of the different procedures or modules that you guys teach. Is this what you get at the workshop?
Yeah, absolutely. So every family gets a workbook, and it's just part of the standard curriculum. It's gone through several revisions as we've expanded our modules. But everybody gets one, and it's also something we've partnered with other nonprofits across the state, other area agencies on aging to help, get those type of skill support and education into the homes, into the hands of more families. So, even outside of San Antonio and Austin, we're actually in the home doing the education in person.
Okay.
Places like Brazos Valley Area Agency on Aging, Tarrant County Area Agency on Aging have been able to help distribute these workbooks to families that they're working with.
Wonderful. Well, it's a great workbook, and I'll definitely be using it too, referring to it. And if someone wanted to get in contact with you, Ryan, for your services, how would they do that? What is your website?
Yeah, so it's upwardhealthcare.com.
Okay.
And so, you can get on there. There's tons of resources. Like I said, the main thing is just the forum and, some of the volunteers that are available to answer questions. And let's see, or you can email me. Our just standard email is hello@upwardhealthcare.com. So any questions about that? Any contacts you have with the Area Agency on Aging or representatives that are listening, I think, and are interested in bringing this type of resources to your community and your families, don't hesitate to reach out. We love what we do, and we feel like this is a resource that should be everywhere because we've seen the positive impact it can have. And I just really believe the more that we support families and educate family caregivers, the better outcomes are going to be for the patient or the care recipient. And I feel like that's something that the industry is lagging a bit, that understanding and the connection they have between those two things. And so, if there is anybody out there that's interested, just give us a call or let us know. I guess say give us a call. I guess I should say our number, 210-624-8229. You can give me a call. That'll go to me.
Okay, great. And we'll definitely make sure we post it on the podcast as well. And I think it's just a great service. So thank you so much for being on our show. And if you decide to reach out to Ryan, please do. And your area service programs, and make sure they can bring it in your area as well. And tell them that Wendy sent you, and make sure you contact them as soon as possible. And Ryan, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Wendy. I really appreciate what you're doing, connecting families, and the work you're doing in this area is tremendous. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's what it's all about, meeting a need just like you did, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, don't forget to like us and subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and check on a senior because it just might brighten your day.